Monday, March 7th, 2016. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, that whole iPhone encryption FBI thing, because most of you don't seem to understand what's going on.
Let's do this.
So real soon, I'll have the video of one of our panels from PAX South up. It took me a while because I was traveling and everything. But I ran into a little bit of trouble because I edited it together. And remember that knob? The knob that I bought with the Patreon money? Mm-hmm. It reduced the time it takes me from I have all the files on my computer to I am rendering the video of the panel from a couple days work, like 3 or 4 days of work, like off and on, to it took me 3 hours to get the whole thing edited and done.
That tells me you're just bad at clicking and good at knobbing, which I understand because you play Kaboom a lot.
Yeah, Kaboom trained me to be a video editor.
Right, but I mean, I'm pretty good at keyboard. I think I could race you.
You want to have an editor race? We should get someone to send us both the same.
I just gotta learn some keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah, you could have a knob that has all the keyboard shortcuts and the macros built in.
This is another situation where somebody is buying something or doing work to avoid learning something.
No, because a lot of these are macros, and two, the buttons are not the important thing. The important thing is the shuttle and the jog for moving around within to like place.
I just use my mouse wheel.
The mouse wheel. Have you used the mouse wheel in the latest updated version of Premiere? Because they reversed what the direction is and they added momentum and some stuff.
They fucking Apple-ified it?
Yeah.
Can you change it in the settings?
I couldn't find a way to. And basically, I went to all those.
Because that's basically what a knob does. It momentumifies and makes it go in the right direction.
The main reason I got this was, one, I missed having the jog and the shuttle, but that wasn't the most important thing. I could have lived without having both. But it was because the mouse was actually not working that well, because if you started scrolling too fast, it'd be like, he must want to go faster. I'm going to start skipping
Oh, but that's
100
right.
frames.
We already discussed this. You don't have the mouse wheel that unlocks and spins freely.
Yeah, but I tried one of those, because I had one at work, so I just brought it home and used it to edit video. Doesn't work great with Premiere.
Was it a high-quality mouse?
Yeah, it's a real. I have the company card. I have the best computer stuff.
What was that mouse? What was that Logitech mouse we tried at PAX once?
Oh yeah, it had like the little shelf for your thumb.
The thing is, all those mice look like basically like Digimon. It's like I don't want to put my hand on them.
Well, I had that Steel series that I bought in 2009.
But that looked like a normal mouse.
I fucking loved that Steel series, but it eventually died, and I actually a couple of years ago replaced it with a Razer Death Adder. Spend the money on a good mouse, but I digress.
My Logitech mice, I've never had one die. They just get dirty, and I'm like, I don't feel like cleaning this again.
Yep. Well, that's what I get for getting the Steel series, because the one
and
I
always
died.
I always buy like, the one that's only cost tens of dollars, not the one that costs hundreds of dollars. So I don't care about,
I'll spend the $60 or $70, but I would not spend more than that on a mouse.
No, that's like max.
If I was
that's
a
my
professional,
max.
If I was a professional gamer, maybe.
If I'm a professional gamer, I hope to have it sponsored.
Yeah. But it would be a multi-$100 mouse, probably custom tuned to me.
It'd probably be, your sponsor's going to give you the top tier, right?
It better. But
here, I'm sponsoring you. Please use my bicycle in the Tour de France. It is a Huffy from Walmart that is built in Krakow.
That would be fun. The sabotage sponsor, the saboteur. Your company sponsors people and gives them garbage equipment just because it's really funny. You might get more publicity for that.
Or, Huffy, it is a bicycle factory. They probably could make a good bike if they wanted to. And,
No, I imagine you sponsor Tiger Woods and you give him these garbage broken golf clubs.
He has Tiger Woods golf clubs, so
yeah.
I think they're Nike clubs or something, whatever.
So anyway, I hit render when I was done, and it's 4K video because that's easy and everything was fine. And I had my same render template that I always have, and it was going to downscale it from 4K to 2K because you're not getting a lot out of the 4K of me and Scott on a dark stage at a convention. And then I walked away from the computer like I always do. And later the day, I came back to the room oh, that render's probably done. And I saw that it was not done. And I saw that it projected 115 more hours of rendering. And I saw that the time it was going to take to finish was going up at about 2 minutes a second. So I futzed around a little bit. And the first thing I thought is, my computer does feel pretty warm. And then I futzed around a little bit and realized that my processor was actually running at about 1.1 gigahertz. And it was running very hot. So I pulled the computer apart and dusted it for one, because it's been a while. And two, I discovered that basically all my case fans, except one on the front and the top one, had died at some point since 2009.
Why is your computer so bad?
Because the computer's from 2009.
But, my computer is also very old, and I've never had a computer where the case fans have stopped working, ever.
So The case fans broke except for the front one and the top one. So I didn't notice that all these like extraneous case fans died. That wasn't a big problem, but it was also dusty in there because it was winter and I usually dust my computer in the spring. So I dusted it all out and my processor's running back at its 2.6 gigahertz. And I hit render and it's still going to take like 90 hours. So I did a little differential diagnosis beyond that point, and I realized that I had actually done more color correction than like those sort of like mastering effects than I usually do. Because I finished the editing so early, I did all the polish that I usually don't bother with in these videos.
You're supposed to do that stuff at the beginning.
No.
Yeah. Usually.
No, because then you got to turn off those, because usually if you apply a lot of those effects, they're actually intensive and it'll slow down your jogging and seeking and scanning while you're editing. You apply them to the master clip at the end and it cascades through everywhere you use those clips.
Or you color correct and render everything, the raw clips at the start, and then you can edit them together without having to do it again later.
Nah, cool. Well, so not to get into my process, but basically the combination of color correction effects I'd used appears to be just very adverse on consumer level PCs because my video card's an old 770. It's not the fastest thing in the world anymore. And I got the render time down to 30 hours, which is reasonable, by undoing a lot of the fancy stuff I was doing to clean up some of the fact that it was a really dark video. And you know what? It's a video of me and Scott in a dark room. There is a noticeable difference if you really care, but not enough for me to care that much. But this is the first time in my life that I had a computer that outlived its case, because when I took the computer apart, I started poking around. I noticed a few other things. That front panel on the case that has like USB headers and FireWire headers and whatever, literally every part of that no longer works.
Oh, mine still works.
Yeah, mine does no longer work.
Why does your stuff suck so much?
It's an Antec 900, like pretty standard case.
It's got a big window on the side.
Most cases
You
have a
should have
big
gotten
window
the
on the
standard
side.
Antec that I got that's just solid all sides.
Yeah,
You can't
it's
trust
not-
anything that's all gamery. You can't trust.
This isn't really all that gamery, though. It just has a glass panel on one
I
side.
see some blue LEDs shining in my face right now.
That blue LED is actually an aftermarket fan that I put in when I built the thing.
Maybe the aftermarket fan is what did you in.
No, actually, that fan is the one fucking fan that's still working.
It doesn't look like it's spinning.
What? Which one?
The bottom one.
Oh, the bottom one? No, that stopped a long
That's
time
the one
ago.
with the LEDs in it.
The top one?
That's
Oh,
no-
yeah, the top one's supposed to have an LED. I guess the LED stopped.
Anyway, so in better opening bits, first of all, warm today.
It was
good,
nicely warm.
Good times. It was nice and warm today. And it was a warm day. I moved to a new office.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about that.
It's across the street from the old office. It's an office. It has, instead of being in a little room with like 6 people, I'm at like a desk that's not really a cubicle, but sort of is. Like the walls aren't really that tall. It's like if you're sitting, you can't really see the person in front of you, but you can see the person to your right
I've
and
had
left.
desks like that before.
But there's like a little wall. And we went to the Muji store and we all together, we loaded up on awesome stuff to see who would make their desk the fanciest.
And when my company moved into their current office, there was a startup that I guess had gone out of business like on another floor. And they just went up there and they were like, here's $1,000. Just give us all your fucking furniture.
Yeah, we went and we bought like plants and we bought little plastic drawer thingies. And everyone was getting good stuff.
All right.
So that was a good time. Also, I'm near the window, so I have less people in the office walking past me and shit.
While it's an open floor plan, so I don't have like an office really, not like I did when I worked at IBM or the hospital or whatever, but I'm in the corner of a big room, so I actually do have 2 corner windows right behind me, which is very nice because we opened all the windows today. Of course, there was a jackhammer going off somewhere, but I could ignore that because I had headphones on.
A lot of people who did not have the headphones previously are now trying to buy them.
Yeah. So I had the weirdest experience. So I visited like a company, you know, doing I had a meeting and I went to this company and I walked through their space and they had one room that was like a big cube farm, like you see with the like kind of like what you're talking about. But it was real big, like real big. And usually when they're real big like that, they have a white noise generator of some kind so people don't go crazy.
You'd hope so.
This one was 100% silence.
Whoa.
There were
Not good.
hundreds of people in there. There was one person
Tick,
on
tick,
the
tick, tick,
phone,
tick, tick,
like
tick, tick.
way far away, and I heard every word he was saying. I could feel the rage and anger of all those people working in that office. It was palpable.
See, at least we have like little walls, most people these days, I go to like startup offices and shit, and they just have a long table. One long, long table, computer, chair.
Yeah, a bunch of MacBooks, a bunch of Aerons.
Whatever, even like monitors and stuff. It's just a long table, and then facing it, another long table. And I'm like, wow, how do you work like that?
If I ever make my own office,
for like
mine,
way more hours than I work,
I would probably get a sit-up, stand-up desk and a super like lounging hammock nonsense.
I would have everyone has an actual office, and it doesn't have to be like big ones, right? But just some sort of, everyone would have a door and walls. You should see some like there are designs that exist these days. Like you can have a lot of those kind of spaces without taking up like without having actual like square rooms with doors. There are other ways to like have doors with less space. Right?
I'd be happy with the George Costanza, like the nap room in my desk.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be good enough. Because honestly, I just need a place I can go take a nap without people bothering me. If I could take a nap like in the middle of my office without just like falling asleep in my chair.
What I really want to do is just be able to play music without having to wear headphones.
I have really good headphones though. Like really good headphones.
Sure, but not wearing headphones, just sitting there comfortably with nothing on my head, no wires, and just music playing. That's way better.
Oh yeah. Well, why don't we gotta find a company and we'll have 2 offices and we'll play music.
It's called the beach. You just lay on a beach. Don't work.
Yeah, I visited a company that did that. Big company. They put their main offices in SoCal, like by the beach. And
no. See, that's not what I'm talking about. That's an office building next to a beach.
So you want to be sitting on the beach with Wi-Fi.
There should be a box that contains a bunch of Wi-Fi equipment and like a cable that's protected from the elements, and then a pool, and then sand, and then an ocean. Because you need the pool sometimes.
Wait, Scott,
right?
I gotta get a high priority Jira ticket for you. We need another sandcastle.
Everyone lays down in some beach chair action with some umbrellas and some, you get infinite supply of lotions, bathing suits, towels. You got a little
putting on lotion, sitting by the ocean.
Exactly, a little
rubbing it on my body.
A little tiki bar action, right? Just everyone, a little cabana, whatever. Everyone just hanging out, and you get a laptop, and you can still work.
Yeah. Or why don't we just be rich and just do that without the working?
That's what I want to do.
So the reason I brought up the whole thing is that I have in front of me, my computer, the invoice from when I bought this computer.
Mm-hmm.
I think this computer is going to last at least another 10 years because nothing on it has ever failed except the case. And the case is real old, and the cases just kind of suck.
Every computer I've ever gotten has lasted 5 to 6 years,
this
except for those Athlons that exploded.
Yeah, but you can't blame the kids who had Athlons because every Athlon exploded.
We couldn't afford Pentium 4s or whatever it was in those days.
Yeah, also the Athlons were way fast.
And we knew better than to get RD RAM. So,
but yeah, I guess it proves that way back I spent thousands of dollars in 2009 on a top of the line computer, like the best Core i7. Like I bought everything top of the line, and it's still a super fast computer. I don't think I need to buy a new computer this year unless I jinx myself and something blows up on the motherboard soon.
I mean, I have 32 gigs of RAM and a 680 and an i7. What is there to upgrade to?
So, Scott, my computer is so old. As I've said, I've got USB 2. I've got SATA 3 gigabit. That's already two serious problems.
I mean, not having USB 3 is kind of but other than that, it's like, SATA 3 is fine.
Nah, really.
How often are you filling your SATA pipe?
So when I'm editing 4K video and I'm streaming it live off the disc, I bump into that problem sometimes.
I do not have that problem.
How often do you edit hour-long 4K videos? I'm
just saying.
In Premiere.
I don't think the disc is actually the bottleneck there.
Well, the video card is not the bottleneck, and actually I can see the disc. I don't think it is,
and even if the disc is the bottleneck, I think it's the disc itself and not the pipe between the disc and the motherboard.
Well, I can see the disc getting pegged, and it appears that this would not be the case with 6. But anyway, I digress. The next 4 or 5 months, I think is a similar performance price plateau to when I built this computer back in 2009. So if you need a computer, buy one this year, and you can probably keep it for a decade.
Moore's Law is sort of, right? So you can just buy a computer whenever.
But a bunch of new standards just got, sort of accepted. So if you buy a computer in the next few months, it'll have all the stuff to where by the time the new stuff comes out, you'll be like I am now with an ancient computer that's still fast enough, but it doesn't have USB 8 or whatever.
Things aren't advancing enough to where it's always a safe time to buy a computer basically these days because it's not unless you're buying like a Mac, right? In which case like you buy one right before the new Macs come out and it's just like but other than that, it's for PCs, buy one whenever. No, it doesn't matter.
Yep. And the idea that you can get an upgradable PC really panned out for me because I've upgraded this thing a whole bunch of times. I doubled the RAM in it for like $20. So you got any news?
Yeah, I do have a news. So we never going to stop talking about Google's or Europe's right to be forgotten nonsense, and Google valiantly fighting against it, right?
It's one of the worst things Europe's ever done.
Right. But anyway, so one of anyway,
I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah. So anyway, basically the new development is this, right? Europe was upset that if you were in Europe, let's say you're in Germany, right? And you go to google.de, the German Google, and you search for someone who was forgotten, you won't find the results that were forgotten. But you could just go to your browser and type google.com or google.non-European country, say Brazil. And if you could speak Portuguese or English, then you could search, and the results that were supposed to be forgotten showed up. And it's like, well, they were sort of like, hey, people just in Europe shouldn't be able to find these results at all. And they were like, you got to delete them from all the Googles, all the different countries, right? If German dude wants to be forgotten,
now remember, he
needs to be forgotten everywhere, not just in Europe.
This is not to forget the actual information, like so-and-so was acquitted of this thing, or so-and-so is a jerk.
It's just remove the search results from Google, so it's hard to find.
Yeah, they're not even going after like smaller search providers. They're pretty much just going after Google.
Right, and they're not going after like the person who's hosting the website with the forgotten information, right? So it's like, I make a blog post with photos of Rim's early days, and Rim says, I need that to be forgotten. We can't be having Dragon High School Rim on the internet anymore, right? So it doesn't show up in the Google search results, but if you can find the URL, you can still find why they don't come after me.
Yeah, there's still links to it. It still exists. They're literally trying to. It's not like move the headstones, leave the bodies. It's leave the bodies and the headstones, but take the street sign down.
It's don't burn the book, just rip the index off the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so basically, what Google has agreed to do is this, which is kind of fine by me, actually. It shows that Google is actually doing the right thing, or at least knows the right thing to do. Is that now, after they put the change out, which they may have done already, if not, they're going to do it soon, is if you're in Germany, say, or France, or whatever Europe place, Belgium, and you do the search, it doesn't matter which country Google you use. Doesn't matter if you go to com or fee or FIFO or FUM, right? Or D. or UK or CX, right? You're not going to see forgotten search results if you're in Europe. But if you were to say, get a little plane, come over to the US, right, where the good people are, where the people who know how to internet are anyway. Doesn't matter which Google. If you're in the US and you go to google.france, you're going to see the forgotten shit because you're in the US. Yeah.
So what argument could Europe make now? Google is doing everything they wanted.
Yeah, well, no, they wanted that person to be forgotten in the U.S. also. So now someone in Europe who does a little VPN over to the U.S. can get real search results.
Oh, no, someone in Europe can actually access free speech.
Yeah, that's a shame. So, yeah, if I was Google, though, they still didn't do what I really wanted them to do, which is, fine, no Google for you.
Yep.
Google should just tell that to everyone, which is like, we do things the way we want, otherwise you don't have any Google. Gmail just, you can't access Gmail from your country, sorry. And then when the millions of Gmail users in their country go, holy fuck, I can't access my email, I can't do anything, my life is ruined, let Google have their way, holy fuck.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to go to Bing? You're going to type bing.com in your browser?
They just turn off people's email. What are you going to do about it, right?
Well, to be fair, only old people use email.
It's like, that's the problem. If Google didn't become a public company, if it was private, they could do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But because they're public, the shareholders would be like, you just lost like bajillions of revenues from Europe.
I mean, the reason, it seems like Europe is sort of a very easy example for us to talk about, but the reason I'm so opposed to this isn't necessarily because I'm opposed to them trying to sort of quiet down the fact that, say, someone was accused of pedophilia.
Yeah, no,
and then found it.
They have good intent, right? They're just their method is wrong.
But letting anyone stifle that sort of speech or that sort of access to true information on the internet is a short step away from...
Or even false information, right? If it's false information...
Well, libel and slander should handle that.
Sure, and it could be considered an artwork, right? And you're gonna, just because someone else doesn't like it, you're going to...
Well, that's another thing where in the U.S., if you slander someone and you're not lying versus if you slander someone and you're making it up, we handle that pretty well.
Yeah.
As opposed to Britain, at least, where even if you're right, you might still get in trouble.
dude, from watching so many Korean TVs and such, and going to places where people who also watch them on the internet discuss things, the libel and slander laws there are like, you just don't say anything about anyone and you'll be safe.
But that's it.
Like,
never forget the
they legally go after people who post comments online that are mean. Like if you go and like post comments on a news article in Korea, they could come after you if you say stuff like, try to harass someone, or it's like, that's sort of a nice thing when you think about it. But it actually goes, it's like, yeah, we wish we could have the police go after trolls, right? Or sue trolls. And,
so see, we can't let Google...
they take it way too far. Like,
we can't let Google be beholden to European rules because Europe is pretty bad compared to the U.S. The whole rest of the world is way worse than Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine what Saudi Arabia would do if they could tell Google to take search results down.
I think they just, they censor their whole internet, right? Don't they?
Yeah, but imagine if they could censor other people's internet outside of Saudi Arabia. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think that's Google's excuse for limiting search results in countries like Saudi Arabia and China.
Some access is better than no access.
No,
blah,
it's
blah.
because the only search results they cut out are search results to things that are blocked. So it's like, why should they provide a search result to something you can't visit anyway?
Well,
right?
a better way is to provide those results anyway and say, yeah, your fucking government won't let you see this.
They could.
Yeah. They kind of did for a while in a lot of places.
They could just like have search results, then put like big red X's on the ones you can't go to.
Well, it's very analogous.
But then they themselves might get blocked,
Well, like Starbucks in Saudi Arabia plays up to the severe gender discrimination, and there's separate entrances for men and women.
Sure.
Yeah, is that okay? Should Starbucks be allowing that to be in that market, or should they take a moral high ground?
It's a public company. You can invest in it, right? So because the shareholders only care about money, they have to do that, regardless of even if all the employees think otherwise.
Never go public unless you're selling out.
Right, because then you basically have to do what makes you the most money, regardless of whether you agree with it or not. Even if the CEO disagreed with it, the shareholders would just be like, did that just make us lose money? Well, you're out.
Duty.
That's right.
So, food poisoning is something I've experienced 3 times in my life severely. Not a fan. Your day will come.
I just know because I eat food safely.
Yeah, but statistically, your day will come. Though, we have some of the best food safety in the world in the U.S., which is shocking when you think about how bad it is.
This is the thing, that it's like everything in the U.S. is so bad, and people in the U.S. always complain about things in the U.S. are bad, and you know what? They are bad. Almost every other place on Earth is worse.
Yeah, look at food poisoning statistics in South Korea
matter
or
what
Japan
it is.
or Europe. Good God.
Yeah.
But... So we inspect restaurants. We have all this stuff. So remember way back, I've talked about this a lot. There is machine learning hit this sort of critical mass where suddenly it's causing a lot of really important changes to happen. And not many people are sort of realizing that all these advances that happened in the last few months are basically all underpinned by a small number of machine learning algorithms that are being used more widely.
Right,
machine learning platforms.
You just get enough data together, right? And that's, instead of coming up with a way to program a computer to work like a human brain, it's just like, well, we'll just get so much data that it doesn't matter.
So food poisoning is a problem. And a machine learning algorithm has been set. Now they call it emesis. Do you know what the word emesis means?
No.
The process or act
Sounds
of
like osmosis.
vomiting. Emesis. That's why an emetic is a drug that makes you vomit. So they call it emesis, like enemy or enemy of emesis. It's clever. And they wanted to use it to analyze social media to identify the sources of food poisoning. It was an experiment. And rather than just being kind of cool or like interesting, it ended up being way better than inspections. So analyzing social media with heuristic algorithms to basically looking for like, all right, a bunch of people use these kinds of words in this area, which correlates with food poisoning. And then the algorithm would go one step further and eventually figure out by linking social profiles together which restaurants caused the food poisoning or which restaurants likely had violations. And it is 63% more effective than any actual like modern system of inspections or data analysis that have ever been used to detect food poisoning.
There's a related but similarly interesting story, right? There's this thing that police use, which is like some sort of method where you put the pins of locations of like crimes on a map, and then you can sort of usually figure out where the person lives, right, or where their base was, or something.
Yeah, like the serial killer is like within a radius of their house.
Right. No, but there's actually like a method where like you can figure out based on like the transportation network network and other things, like
yeah.
where the person's likely from. So
I played Scotland Yard.
Right, but it's even better than that. There's a name for it. If I had the name for it, you could read the Wikipedia about it. It's much more interesting than just like radius, right?
I actually read about it recently because I was reading about the Zodiac Killer because I was going to make a really nuanced Ted Cruz joke.
So somebody used this on all the locations of Banksy's artworks in the UK or whatever.
Oh,
And all the different locations that it pointed to as being bases or homes were connected to this guy who people were pretty sure was Banksy like years ago, but it was like independently pointed at the same guy without, it wasn't like they had this guy in mind. It pointed to all these locations, and then they said, oh, what are these locations? Oh, an apartment rented by this guy and a house that the guy lived once, and it was a guy that was previously suspected to be him. So it's like, probably know who it is now.
So I was going to talk about this
100%.
on the next Tuesday show, so I won't get into it, but I was going to talk on Tuesday about machine learning algorithms that, there was kind of an open secret that a lot of crossword puzzle artists just straight up plagiarized from each other, but no one could really prove like who was doing it or what was plagiarized. It was just sort of like everyone kind of suspected. Machine learning algorithms recently figured out exactly who was plagiarizing whom and how widespread it was, very specifically. And that all ties into, remember I talked about a while ago how there's that algorithm, the Google AI, that is beating humans at Go, at 19 by 19 Go.
Yep.
Well, it was doing so well that is finally happening. It beat the best Go player in Europe, and now South Korean's Lee Sedol, who is apparently the Go champion of the world. It's going to play against him. Like, this was announced today,
How many times is he going to play it? If he plays once, he might beat it. If he plays it like 10 times and it's got 9 games of data, it might it might win.
This is it. This is going to be the moment, very likely. It's either the moment where the AI proves that it's better than all humans that go forever, or it proves that it's about to be better than all humans that go forever.
Or we got to wait. It's not a matter of if it's going to beat him, it's when, right?
Yep.
Will it be now or will it be the rematch later?
I was talking to some machine learning and Go experts, actually, about this at MagFest. And here's my thought on all this machine learning, because I keep talking about this. There's something going on, like machine learning.
We finally have access to enough data, right? Someone can just get enough data just from social media alone, publicly available data from
to
the
figure
internet
out a
APIs
specific restaurant and a specific food poisoning event.
Right. So if you're, say, a government who has a government's amount of data, or a research institute with a study's worth of data, or many studies worth of data, you're looking good.
Yeah. So the two tests will be, one, if the AI beats this guy in the first try, if the AI starts beating him within a few weeks of playing against him. But the third one, the real interesting one, is if this AI starts beating any humans at 20 by 20 Go.
What size? I was going to ask what size is
19
playing.
by 19, full on fucking Go.
Right.
Which, there's comments in our YouTube video about bad games where we talk about how Go will likely never be solved, and we talk about
Someone
complexity.
said just make it bigger.
Basically what they were saying is that you guys are morons. Go will not be solved. Like, AIs cannot beat humans in the time frames you're saying. And guess what? I think we said 2040 is when I thought AIs would be able to beat humans.
Because we thought that they were gonna use the old, the method of the deep blue, right?
Yeah.
We didn't think they were gonna use some fancy way of doing it with machine learning.
So suck it, haters, and watch out for the machine learning revolution, because this shit is really taking off. But because for whatever reason, the heuristics that work.
Let's find who we can invest in that's doing machine learning.
The heuristics that work in 19 by 19 Go seem to have thus far been unintelligible to computers when they try to apply it to 20 by 20 Go. Like, the game 19 by 19 Go and 20 by 20 Go are shockingly different.
Yeah.
But human Go players have had just, their sort of soft, fuzzy intuition play and their experience with Go to reliably beat AIs all the time in 20 by 20.
Right. Like, if you you could basically play infinite board Go to and whatever, right? And
Eventually, like right now, at least human intuition.
Even in any individual subset of the board, right, a human can comprehend, right?
If there is a leap from 19 by 19 being unbeatable by humans against the AI to 20 by 20 within the next year or so, that means the pace of this shit is way out of control. So anyway, things of the day. In case you guys are not aware of this, there's a really, really, really famous book about UX, or HCI, the design of everyday things, by Don Norman. If you do UIs or UXs, that's something that's like a basic textbook for design. And if you're not familiar with that, Vox, they make YouTube videos and such. They're an entity on the internet with media.
They own The Verge and Polygon and
yeah.
such.
There is a door in one of the floors of the Vox office that commits the cardinal sin of doors. It looks like it's a push door or pull door, but it's actually a push door, or vice versa. You know the situation where it has a pull handle, but you gotta push it?
Yep.
So that's the example. I mean, this book was only written in the late 80s, I think, mid to late 80s. And it might seem obvious, like, oh, you design things so that people will intuitively know how to use them. But that idea has not been widely executed anywhere, because if it was...
Well, the person who installs the doors isn't thinking too hard about that.
Exactly. So there's a lot of solved problems like this that are not well solved. So if you're an aspiring
It's well
UX...
solved, just the implementers aren't, you know, it's not like, unless you have the interior designer or the architect install every door, the person who installs the door is just a laborer who installs doors.
Well, I guess I'll
and
put
they
it
don't
another
really
way.
care, you know.
A lot of people design things, and it seems like there are obvious common sense design principles that would make things easier to use. But in practice, a lot of the people who design the things that we use on a daily basis just didn't put that much thought into it,
Right.
and
I mean,
or suck at it.
This is why you can make a living being like Apple or Muji that I went to today, right? Where it's like you just design things fancily, and if you just buy like, you know, if you buy furniture from like IKEA, the people at IKEA think really hard about it. If you buy furniture from Gennaro Furniture Place, they don't have like Johnny Ive fucking working there, right? They don't give a shit. They just make furniture, you know, the way they always made it, and they don't, you know, they don't have designers and pay attention to design trends. They just make furniture. They don't care.
So this is basically a video kind of covering the 101 of that sort of human interface design. And it's all centered around this one fucking door in the Vox office. If you're a UX designer, an aspiring UX designer, anything, this Monday stuff, if you don't already know everything in this video, you should study up.
There's a lot of money to be made just doing something that people already do and just doing it with good design, right? Like, if you want to make washing machines, it's like none of the washing machines, maybe there's some out there that are really fancily designed, but most aren't.
Well, here, remember way back, when we were in Beacon, you went to the laundromat, and there was that guy trying to sell the low-temperature dryers to the laundromat owner. He was like, nah, people like it hot. They need it to be super hot. Like, he fundamentally misunderstood the use and purpose of the dryers.
Well, I think he, you know, had these ideas about, you know, what's going to make him more or less money in his, you know, laundromat, when it's really, no matter what fucking dryer you have, people are going to come here to dry their clothes. It's about just how much you charge.
Yeah, and
No
how
one
much it
cares.
costs you to run the electricity of those super hot ancient dryers that you've got.
Yeah, you could, you know, if you bought new dryers, when would they pay for themselves? Well, you know,
But I think it's just most
electric
people...
bill savings times revenue.
I feel like most people who end up designing things in practice just don't understand basic design principles, and it's all illustrated by this door. Got a thing of the day?
Oh, I do have a thing today. Here's some guys biking, which we're going to be doing pretty soon.
Yeah.
And they're biking somewhere in a place I would not go. Looks pretty dangerous because
It looks pleasant.
free roaming ostriches.
Uh-oh.
Watch out.
I just imagine an ostrich seeing you, and you hear that Kill Bill.
Dun, 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 dun.
This is a real good video. In the meta moment, we're going to be, I guess, at Anime Boston. Looks like they put the rest of our panels in pending, so I guess they just got to actually schedule them. So I think we're doing...
So we're going?
I think we're doing everything we submitted.
So we're actually going?
Looks like it, so I'm going to sort out... We got to get our
What panels
transport.
do we have to make?
I don't remember.
This thing is soon.
Yeah, it is. It's a couple weekends from now.
Easter weekend, I think.
We got to do the... I think it's all panels we can do pretty easily.
As long as we're doing the old... next anime season thing.
Yeah, that's the only one that requires effort.
Yeah.
Because that's the only one that actually requires... There's a lot of slides you got to make, and it's not super automatic to make that happen. That's pretty much the only thing. That's probably the only one we'll try to video, too, because, obvious reasons. But otherwise, PAX East coming up. We're going to be doing at least one panel at it on Sunday, maybe more, but Atari Game Design's in there at least for now. Kineticon, I don't know when I can open the panels. Sorry, I got nothing for you. It's not dependent upon me. So I'm waiting for the go-ahead to open panel submissions. And that's all I got to say about that. The Patreon has a bunch of reviews of things by me and Emily. We're calling it the Rimley Review, and we're going to do a bunch more of those.
And you can save a lot of money by not paying attention to that.
But the main reason we're doing it is because Emily and I are watching a lot of media like Jessica Jones or Zootopia that Scott's not watching, and I want to review those things.
Won't watch.
I don't know why you want. Zootopia is probably the best Disney movie to come out in 20 years.
The trailer was funny. I'll see it one day. Whatever.
It's real good. Like I can't. It's very rare, Scott, that I go into something with high expectations, and they're met, let alone exceeded.
I think pretty much everyone on Earth is more easily amused than I am.
All right. What was the best movie you've seen in the last, I don't know, 5 years?
5 years
Ish.
I've rewatched Rear Window within the last 5 years, and that's like the best movie there is almost. So, I mean, it wasn't the first time I saw it. Does that count? That's like, you know, if you ask me the best thing I've eaten, right? You won't discount something if it like, oh, I went to Salt and Fat again, right? It's like, does that not count because it wasn't?
Just keep going to Salt and Fat.
It wasn't right. It was not the first time I went there. Right?
I'll put it this way, Scott. It was good, not just from like the usual metrics, but it was good from like a full-on lit crit, film crit perspective in a way that most movies are not.
All right, but what's
I was
the hurry?
surprised by that. It was good. So what's the hurry is, if the rest of you want to learn about all these things that I'm watching and Scott's not, it's all in the Patreon with me and Emily.
That's where it should stay.
Yeah, it is going to stay there.
Where you should not go. There it shall stay.
And we'll do the book club soon. I'm probably going to do Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake.
What? I was going to do You're just taking my idea.
But so I'm about halfway through book 10 of the Wheel of Time now.
Whoa, what is wrong with you?
Well, because some shit went down. You know those big statues, like the crazy big Angreal, like the nonsense ones?
They finally came into play?
Someone just used them both.
Aren't they the most powerful things there are that like destroy the whole world? And destroy the Dark One even?
They could let's just say that they have the capacity to destroy entire continents by accident in the course of doing other things.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what they warned me about them in book 1.
Yeah, so you know what? It's basically the Giga Slave, and shit goes down. It's pretty interesting.
Aren't you supposed to use it on the Dark One?
No, they did not use it on the Dark One.
Why not?
They just used it to do a thing.
Use it on the Dark One.
Yeah, it's complicated. What is the Dark One? I don't know.
It doesn't matter. You know where he is. He's in this big mountain or something. So just
Shio Gull in the end of the Blight or whatever.
So just use the full power of those things on that spot and narrow it really, really fine points.
Just blow it up. That might just blow up the planet, I guess.
Oh, you take the Dark One with you.
But I'll probably review the whole Wheel of Time. So I'm probably going to finish the whole fucking thing in the next like month or two.
What's wrong with you?
You know what? I was going to just read spoilers, but the spoilers I've found...
Maybe you could just read spoilers for the final book.
So here's my problem, because I've run into this with other things too. Like, after I beat Undertale, I read a whole bunch of spoilers, just to, like, you know, analysis and stuff. Wikias, like, did I miss anything? And I tried to do that for some of the Wheel of Time. What I've discovered is that most things that people think are spoilers aren't, because the people writing those things don't know shit. And they grossly misinterpret basic things. Like, I read some spoilers of Undertale.
Cliff Notes aren't free.
That were literally wrong. Like, the person literally misunderstood who a character was, and that's just like on the Wikia. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's out there. Kids do not know how to do lit crit. They don't know how to summarize, and it'll be faster for me to spoil the Wheel of Time by just finishing it than it will be to try to read that Wikia.
Finishing it will ruin it, will make it unenjoyable. If it's so unenjoyable to read that it's just spoiling it.
You know what? That's the problem. It's not that unenjoyable to read, so I kind of just keep reading it because it's so fast.
I'll stay back in my, you know, where I am, wherever that is.
You're never, yeah, Scott. At one point they found.
I think they went to the mansion of the guy who used to be like the knight for the queen, and then the evil guy took over and he got kicked out.
Oh yeah, so the White Cloaks, like their whole nation got like collapsed.
Well, that was, I mean, yeah, that's
bunch
good.
of queens all over the place.
All right,
one of the queens anyway, stuff went down. I know a lot of stuff. They're a little bit beyond that now. So this Apple case, I'm sure we're not going to try to tell you like 100% of what's happening because it's been in all the news for a long time.
And I don't care about the legal or the lawyery or the terrorism aspects of what's going on, right? But there's a lot of technologies going on, and even the news that's reporting on it doesn't know. And the congressman, because I watched the hearing about this.
Oh, yeah.
The congressman actually knew more than I thought they did, but mostly in legal territory. But someone had briefed them, and also the ones that I know to be wise in the technology ways, right? Like Zoe Lofgren or whoever, right? Is like the few congressmen who actually know what a computer is.
Yep.
Or at least, I guess, are paid by Google to know what a computer is.
But I see a lot of otherwise smart people or even tech people who seem to be on the FBI's side or on the backdoor side. So the overall, we're going to talk about this in more detail, but if you need a TLDR version of this, Apple is right, the FBI is wrong.
The end.
Like, that is the answer.
All right, so basically the situation is this. The FBI has an iPhone belonging to a criminal, right? They would like access to the information on the phone. However, it is encrypted, and they cannot access this information, right? They would be able to access it if they could type in the person's password and unlock the phone, right?
But that person is dead.
That person is dead. And, you know, they don't know the password. And if they try to unlock it too many times, first of all...
Which apparently they already did. So.
Right. It takes a long time to try a bunch of passwords because it'll slow you down, right? Like, wait before you enter another one. Also, if there's a feature, I've enabled it on my iPhone. If you try 10 times in a row and you fail 10 times in a row, which is pretty hard to do, sometimes I get worried when I mess up like 2 or 3 times in a row.
The same thing on my Android.
But if you mess up 10 times in a row, it'll just erase your phone, which is fine if you have a backup like me. It's, you know, I have an encrypted backup on my personal computer, so I can just fix it when I get home, but it'll suck for the rest of the day using a blank phone.
Well.
At least the phone calls will still work. But anyway... So, yeah, if they mess up 10 times guessing this password, then the phone will just erase itself and they're fucked.
Now, there's a whole bunch of interesting nuance around this where the FBI basically completely mishandled the whole thing. So the phone was also backing up to iCloud.
Yeah.
And it looks like
They
Apple...
could have just gotten the backup from iCloud, and if it wasn't encrypted up there, could have just looked at that, and you don't need to look at the phone because if all the data from the phone was in Apple's cloud computer somewhere.
Which is interesting. I wonder if Apple will maybe start to offer an option where the iCloud backup is also encrypted.
Yeah, I mean, you can encrypt your local desktop backup, but I haven't seen an option in iTunes for encrypting the iCloud one. I just thought it was.
Which is fine.
I thought it was encrypted, but I don't know, whatever.
Because Apple basically provides... So here's the two levels... You know, we did an episode a long time ago about the levels of paranoid security. Mm-hmm. The main reason to encrypt your phone is if you lose your phone, you don't want people getting access to your shit.
Yep.
You can kind of trust Apple's security on the backups, so you kind of don't want to encrypt those.
You can actually trust Apple, I think, more than any other major technology corporation to protect
after this, definitely.
to protect your data, because for a while, for years now, Apple has been saying, listen, we're charging you all this money for our fancy computers, but look at them Googles over there, right? They're giving you phones away for cheap. Why are they giving you phones away for cheap? Because they're making all the extra revenues by selling your information. We don't give a shit about your information. We're just selling you hardware and software directly. That's all we're doing. And it's mostly true. I believe them.
So if you're ultra paranoid and you care about data security and like the phone's, you know, like I lost my physical artifact security, then just turn off iCloud backups and everything you've got is encrypted on the phone.
Just make sure you got your backups. You can use iTunes to save encrypted backups of your phone to your own hard drive, and that way, you know, if the FBI comes and takes your home computer, you know, they'll have to brute force you.
They might have been able to just trick the phone into sending one more backup. But apparently the FBI fucked that up by like calling Apple and getting them to disable the iCloud account, and it's all fucked now. So there's a whole side conversation we're going to avoid here around the fact that
the specifics of this case.
Well, no, how the FBI apparently has terrible computer forensics capabilities.
Sure.
They made a series of baby's first mistakes
with
here.
something that wasn't even like an advanced. It wasn't like the master hacker has encrypted his computer and you managed to get it from him.
Yeah,
and this is someone who was like setting up, Silk Road 5.0 or whatever, right? This
iPhone.
is a dumb, non-technological person's iPhone, and
someone had an iPhone and they said yes, encrypt. Like.
They pushed the yes button.
Yeah. that genius. That
FBI couldn't,
unimpeachable
the FBI
genius.
couldn't deal with it. They need Apple's help because they're such dum-dums.
Yeah. So
this is why they keep going to colleges trying to hire people like us.
So what the FBI is basically
no.
demanding of Apple is that the way iPhones are architected today, as far as we can tell, the data's encrypted. But because, there's a lot of things around,
any device anywhere, right? Any modern device has a feature to update the software. You can replace the operating system on an iPhone or an Android computer or anything, right? You can replace the OS. And how do you replace the OS? Because there's an update mechanism. You can use the update mechanism of any device to basically gain full access because you just rewrite the OS with an OS that does whatever the fuck you want. So FBI is like, hey, write us a new version of iOS that is like super unlocked and can just like let us type in the password a million times without deleting and does all these things we want. And we'll flash this iPhone with the new iOS you wrote just for us. And then it'll be totally awesome.
Now, this opens up a lot of interesting issues. So one, the fact that the FBI is asking Apple to do this means, again, that our government does not have access to the best and brightest forensics people to try to figure this out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
what I would be doing if I was them would just be open up the iPhone, break off the solid state storage, right? Attach it directly to a computer, copy all the bits over.
And just start a brute force?
Right. It's like there's just zeros and ones there. I've got them all. Now I'm going to do whatever I want.
Anyone that the government has in their employ is capable of that.
I'm capable of that with given enough time and documentation.
So they're trying.
Give me the data sheet for the storage, chip on there, whatever. I'll hook it up to a circuit board.
So they're trying to do a lot of things. For one, they're basically demanding that all encryption on anything that consumers can have a backdoor that the government can just open on their own.
Right. So let me make an analogy, because everyone, all those congressmen tried to do analogies, right? And all their analogies had the same problem as all other analogies, which is major problems with them. But here's an analogy that is not mad broken, right? It's not 100% perfect.
Well, if it was 100% perfect, it wouldn't be an analogy.
Exactly. So imagine if everyone had locks on the doors to their houses. Oh, wait, people do, right? But there's a way around a lock on a door to a house, which is you bash the fucking door down, right? So imagine if people had ways to make doors on their houses that actually could not be broken down. You absolutely need the key, and if you don't have the key, there's no way to like magically pick the lock or anything. It's like all you can do is keep sitting there making keys until you make one that's the right shape. Otherwise, there is no possible way to get through the door unless you have quantum teleportation or some other nonsense, right? So the FBI doesn't want to sit there making keys. They go to the person who invented this magical door that's unbreakable. And they said, hey, person who made this unbreakable door, make us a key that will open any of your unbreakable doors because we're the government and we should be allowed to go into all these houses because we have the right to search and siege when we have warrants. We have warrants. We need to be able to get in those houses to serve these warrants, which are totally legal. Make us a master key. It's like, if we made a master key, sure, you could go in all the places, and even if we trusted you to only use it on places with warrants, if the doors can be opened by a master key, if the master key were to fall into anyone's hands, or if anyone were to guess this master key, they would guess and be able to go into everyone's house ever.
Now, it's even better than that because it's a question of, is it possible? Having a master key means a master key is theoretically possible.
Which means now, if someone were to say an evil person wanted to break into Rim's house, they keep guessing keys, and eventually they get in Rim's house. Okay, they guessed they got lucky, and they got in Rim's house, and guess number 5. That's fine. It's not, it's not the end of the world. It's the end of the world for Rim, but not for anyone else, really. Imagine if I'm, someone who gets lucky, and if they know that it's possible, they're going to try to now open every door ever.
Any backdoor to encryption means there's no such thing as encryption, full stop.
Yes.
Now, this is all also should be moot, again, from a forensic standpoint, because no one intelligent is going to go after the encryption itself directly. You've already lost if that's your last effort.
Yep.
Encryption gets broken because people who have encrypted data have to share that data with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of ways to spy on people, as we know, NSA, listening to this right now, probably live. There's other ways to figure out that information, or at least the relevant information. There's a lot of ways. There's like a billion inputs and outputs all around this encrypted
Most
core.
people have dum-dum passwords, right? Most of the evil people who you're going after are dum-dums, right? It's very rare that the person you're going after is like sophisticated enough to where you can't, figure them out, right? Which is why the FBI gets away with having these dum-dums on staff, because they're not going after, anyone who's sophisticated usually. So
now,
it doesn't matter.
Not an analogy, but a literal example of this. In the U.S., you have to use a TSA-approved lock if you have checked baggage on a plane, or they'll just cut your fucking lock off.
Yep.
So TSA-approved locks have a slot where you can put a special secret master key in, and there's like 12 of them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, go Google for TSA master keys because you can print them in your 3D printer.
Yep.
Anyone
A
in the world.
TSA lock is basically no lock.
Yep. Anyone in the world can print or buy all the master keys. And you know how they were leaked? A photograph.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep.
When I lock my luggage, I just put a zip tie on it because when they break it, oh well, they would have broken it anyway.
You know that it was broken, right?
Exactly.
It's just like you can't protect your luggage. I mean, I feel like there's no point in locking luggage because even if I had a lock on the luggage that wasn't a TSA lock, you can get into the luggage with a knife.
Yeah.
Just cut the luggage open, right?
All it does is slow down like the laziest thief.
And even if I'm using like Samsonite luggage, great. Now they use a hammer and they get into my luggage, right? If I'm not going to make my luggage like a titanium box and carry it around, it's like there's no point in locking it, right? So a zip tie is perfectly fine because all that does is say, aha, somebody went into it, or nope, no one went into it.
Now, what's interesting is that it's basically apparent that Apple could write a custom version of the OS that would severely weaken the existing security capabilities of iOS.
And they could flash it onto that phone, and then, you know.
I've heard rumors that Apple is working on for a future iPhone an updated iOS that removes that possibility.
Right, now here's the technological reason behind this, right? So, jailbreaking an iPhone ain't that easy, right? Well, why? I mean, it has an update feature. You can replace iOS. You can update iOS. Couldn't you use the update mechanism to put any OS you wanted on there?
If you got Apple's key.
That's right. The iPhone is programmed such that if you try to give it software, say, hey, iPhone, and the iPhone's like, what's up? I got an OS for you to replace iOS with. It's iOS 20.0. And it's like, all right, cool.
It's iOS give.me.your.bitcoins.
Right. So, you know, you send it on over, and then the iPhone takes a look at it, and it decides, am I going to replace myself with this or not? And it looks, and it says, well, who made this? Right? How does it know who made that? Because of digital signing, encrypted signatures, right?
Which is, in many ways, more important than encryption.
Right. So the way this works, I think we've discussed it in the show a long time ago, signing, or digital signing, is you make a private key and you make a public key, RSA, just like you're using for SSH or for anything else, right? You give the public key to everyone in the world because it's a public key, and you keep the private key just for yourself. Then you can take a file or any data, right? I take a text file I'm going to send to Rim, right? I don't need to encrypt this text file because all it has is show ideas. I don't care if the government looks at it. But I want him to know these are show ideas from me and not from some listener trying to mess with him.
Yeah.
So he knows, right? He has my public key. He knows that's my public key because I gave it to him. And I have my private key that no one else on Earth has. I can apply that private key to the text file, right? And add a little bit of data to the text file. Right? It's not encrypted, and then I give Rim the text file. He doesn't know my private key, but when he gets that text file, he sees a little bit extra data on there, and he takes my public key, and he takes that little bit of extra data, and he combines them, and he goes, aha, this file is 100% guaranteed. Whoever sent me this file, I know for sure that the person who sent me this file has Scott's private key and knows the passphrase to use Scott's private key. Therefore, I'm like 100% sure Scott is the person who made this file. And I don't have to, it's definitely not from a listener. The odds of that would mean that the listener has some ridiculously powerful computer and a lot of time on their hands, right? So we can guarantee that it's from me. Well, iOS, when it gets a new OS and decides whether or not to update it, it looks and it says, is this digitally signed, right? Am I 100% sure this is from the person it's supposed to be from? And who is it supposed to be from? Apple. Apple has a private key at Apple headquarters, and they sign the iOS updates with it, and your iPhone will only, or iPad will only install a new iOS if it's been digitally signed by Apple. If it was signed by anyone else and their private key, it would say, fuck no. And that's why it's hard to jailbreak an iPhone, because the iPhone is just like, I'm not installing this, and you need to learn Apple's private key. So the FBI can't trick the iPhone into installing software unless Apple applies their signature to it. Apple could like apply that signature to like Linux, like a Linux kernel, and you could load that onto an iPhone. So, but they won't.
And what the FBI is basically demanding of Apple isn't just make us a back door. They're basically saying, do unpaid labor for us to create the mechanism of having a back door and give us the product of that work, simultaneously
and
destroying
sign it with your key so it'll actually install.
Yep, simultaneously destroying the security of your device and every other iPhone on Earth.
Yep.
So This makes it all really hilarious that like the Republicans in Congress they're trying to put forth a law to ban the government from ever using Apple products again.
Sure, go for
And
it.
what they're basically saying is we refuse to use the only actually secure phones because we're mad that they're secure.
Yes, make the government very insecure. Yes, please do this. Yes. No, all right, so the question is Apple wants to make it to where the phone would even be protected from Apple, right? So how would you do this?
Well,
right?
you have the local device's key that you use to encrypt, and you could basically have like that itself could also be signed with Apple's key, and the local phone could have the ability to destroy its own key if it's compromised.
Right. So what you would do is you'd encrypt all the data on the phone, right? Your personal data, right? With a key that's on the phone.
And isn't anywhere else.
And is nowhere else, right? And that key has a passphrase, obviously, right? So the phone, if you say, take the SSD out of the phone and try to look at the data, it would just be an encrypted mess. And even if the private key is there, that private key itself is encrypted with like a symmetric encryption. If you don't know the passphrase, you can't decrypt that
the
either.
passphrase is part of the math.
Right. So it's like, good luck, unless the person has a really shitty password, right? And now, even if Apple were to replace the OS, right, because they were forced to sign this new OS, that new OS still can't read any of the person's personal data, right? It's all encrypted with a different key.
Yeah.
And then when you log into your phone and unlock it, that's when it decrypts everything. And then when you lock your phone up, it's encrypted again.
Now, obviously, it's more complex than that, but the gist of it is that it is possible to make an iPhone that isn't even vulnerable to Apple doing custom work to break in.
Apple could, doing custom work could still replace the OS, but they could never access your personal data no matter what, because it's that private key to access that personal data is entirely under your control and no one else's.
And I think Apple's gonna do it because their letter to the FBI, an open letter, was basically
fuck you,
fuck you,
fuck
everyone involved in this.
Fuck
we
you.
speak for the user.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. I can watch that movie again.
I've seen that enough times.
So if you had any doubts about who's in the right or who's in the wrong, like not for nothing, if you still think that Apple should bend over to the FBI, I personally think you're a dangerous person.
Dangerous?
Yes.
You're not just a stupid person?
Well,
or
stupid people are
uninformed
dangerous.
Person? Sure.
So, someone who wants there to be back doors in security that people will use to be secure.
Take your lock off your house.
Yeah.
Let everyone in who wants to come in.
Just give me a key. You can trust me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geek Nights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geek Nights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
And the patrons for this episode of Geek Nights, in order of the amount of money they give us on a continuing basis, are Nicholas Brandau, Rebecca Dunn, John R. Nobbs II, Amanda Deschette, James David White, Christian Kuntz, Jess, Mechanical Mind, William Eisenrose, Jeremy Miner, you expect the next name to be yours, but it was me, Dio, Sean Yeager, Clinton Walton, MyStady.com, Ren from New Zealand, Robert Lee, Ryan Perrin, Drew Openlander, Rare Lavelle, Brian Cedrone, Rochelle Montanona, Finn Eric Solverod, Can't Melt Steel Beams, Kinetic Man, Aaron Cerise, Chris Midkiff, Chris Knox. I will now make Rim say titty sprinkles. I've thought carefully and I'm still going to pay. Daniel Redman, Chris Haddad, Sean Klein, Chris Reimer, and Thomas Hahn. The main reason, the secret that you get smooth radio voice instead of my normal sort of yelling tone is that usually when I record this part, we've already finished the show and I've already packed away all the stuff. And then I remember that I have to do this. So I just pull the microphone out and hold it in my hand so I don't have the pop filter. Since I don't have the pop filter, I have to be very careful about how I speak and I have to use a very, very, very more standard radio voice. I also tend to get very close to it because I'm not yelling because I'm the only person in the room. And it's kind of weird to yell into a microphone when you're the only person in the room. But as you may have noticed, the first of our videos from PAX South is up. The second one will be up at some point. The Move Atom failed to be created for the Atari part of our Atari game design panel, which, if it's unrecoverable, is fine because I've recorded it at MagFest and we're doing an encore at PAX East. So I'll have plenty of opportunities to re-record it, but I think I will be able to repair the MP4. So I should get that video up as soon as I get a chance, as well as episode 15 of Geek Nights Presents Utena. And now I leave you with something pretty weird.
Love and then you hate, you give but then debate. The night that wanders into night salute you.
Ich war in dir.
The mind from different kinds, so reaching down to see your heart. To see and then you free. It's to me, it's honesty. You'd fight in our world to me to greet you.
War mir bist du.
Believe but don't deceive. So make the will to start. So stay clear, walk off your dear message from the heart. Love and be strong and to fight right, died on your heart. No ordinary world can be so far. You're great, great, great in the world of calligraphy. The night